Nothing is more trustworthy than a man's best friend. Dogs are very awesome. If you didn't believe it before, today's story will certainly convince you. Why does this dog go to Mass every single day? For an extremely surprising and tragic cause. In a little town near Brindisi, Italy, there is a small church where Mass is said every day. This is not unusual. There are many little towns in Italy where Mass is celebrated every day and is nonetheless attended by big crowds. But what you don't frequently see is a dog attending daily Mass or even sitting calmly during the ceremony, only to leave just as gently as soon as the door opens afterward. However, this is what has been happening in the small village of San Donaci. The German Shepherd had become a staple at church for months, appearing every day. His behavior was quite weird. Normally, the only animals you see at these types of events are service dogs, but this dog was coming in on his own and looking really forlorn every time he did. Father Pino, the priest at this church, said the rest of the congregation is fine with the dog coming inside because he is calm and reverent. However, they were beginning to wonder what he saw. He simply sits in front of the altar and stares at the same area. Some of those around him have begun to panic, believing that he may be seeing the dead. But for Father Pino, a dog enthusiast who had recently lost his own puppy, it was evident that this dog was simply unhappy. He looked quite familiar, but Father Pino couldn't place him. The dog was obviously homeless, he was filthy and thin. Could he simply be looking for a safe spot to sleep and some shelter? Was he genuinely seeking assistance? The priest couldn't ignore the sensation that the puppy needed aid. He may have looked scruffy, but he was sweet. When the dog was about to leave after Mass one day, the priest requested assistance from several youths. After giving him a few snacks, they bathed him. They were a little worried about doing this since you never know how a dog will respond to water, but this wonderful pup just let them wash and dry him and appeared to appreciate the attention. After his bath, the priest and the children fed him. He was a touch thin, but more than ever, Father Pino was certain he had seen this dog before. He simply couldn't remember where. He put the mystery aside for the time being to focus on the puppy. They needed to ensure he was healthy. He might be pleading for aid, and they hadn't seen he was in agony, so he decided to take the adorable German Shepherd to the local vet. They put him on a leash, and strangely, the dog didn't seem to mind. He walked beside the priest all the way to the vet, completely obeying him. The veterinarian examined him thoroughly, but he was in perfect health. They looked for signs of his owner, but he didn't have a microchip. It was another dead end. At the very least, they had ensured his well-being, but would they ever learn why this dog was attending Mass or where he had resided prior to being a frequent visitor to the church? The priest, disappointed and partly defeated, returned to the church with the dog. As they were walking by some stores, a little child came out and began to pet the dog. He even gave him a hug and called him Tommy. Father Pino was surprised and asked the youngster why he called the dog this name. A little perplexed, the boy replied that he called it that since it was his name. He'd known the dog for years. They all had. Tommy was the rescue dog of Maria Loci, an elderly woman living in the neighborhood. Finally, the priest remembered where he'd seen the dog previously. He was constantly wandering around with his owner. He was significantly thinner today, and he was filthy when he first arrived at the chapel, but it was evident who he was: Maria's beloved Tommy. Maria was a compassionate lady who enjoyed saving animals. She had a few rescue dogs throughout the years, but Tommy was her favorite. She found him as a puppy in the fields near her home. He was quite unwell at the time, and everyone had abandoned him. She had rescued him and nurtured him back to health, despite nearly losing him several times, and he eventually became a happy, healthy dog who accompanied her wherever she went. If she went into town, he was right there beside her. He even went to church with her, but he used to wait outside until she found him. So, why is he coming inside now? Why was he not with his best friend? The sad truth was that she had died a few months prior. She had no family in the region, and it appeared that her most treasured pet had returned to life on the streets, with the exception of his daily visits to Mass. Father Pino went to the residence where Maria had stayed to make sure no one was missing Tommy. It was a little way out of town, and it was definitely unoccupied. The grass was tall, and Maria's flower beds, which she always cared for, were overtaken with weeds. But Tommy became really enthusiastic as they got closer. He dashed to a hole in the fence and lay down on a dog bed on the porch. He clearly considered this area to be home, even though there was no one to care for him anymore. When Father Pino decided to depart, Tommy refused to accompany him. Knowing he would see the dog at Mass as usual, the priest left him alone to investigate the mystery. The priest had a good sense of what was going on, but he wanted to investigate further. He returned to the church and left some food, water, and even a blanket for Tommy in case he needed it. He then proceeded to examine the security cameras. He reviewed some recent footage before moving on to material from a few months earlier. What he discovered was utterly insane. First, he watched footage of Maria's funeral. He didn't see at the moment, but Tommy was following the funeral procession into the church. He carefully followed the casket, knowing that this was his ultimate farewell to his beloved person. He went to lie down next to the casket and remained there during the funeral service, in the same spot where he would now lie down every day. Taking the tape back even farther, the priest noticed Maria attending Mass every day. She'd instruct Tommy to stay outside, then go inside and sit in her favorite spot. Tommy would watch over Maria from the door and then lie down outside once she was settled. Tommy was usually monitoring the exact same location where Maria would regularly sit. The good lad was returning to the location where he had said his final goodbye to his friend, keeping an eye on the spot where she sat in the hopes that she would be there one day. That's fantastic, but also heartbreaking. He lost the person who mattered the most to him, but his great love and loyalty captivated the hearts of everyone in town, and they all made certain that Tommy would never be alone again. Tommy has been embraced as the town dog by everyone, including the youngsters and business owners such as the butcher. They feed him when he is present, provide him with a place to sleep, and ensure that he receives all of the love and care possible. Tommy may not have the person he genuinely wants beside him, but this community has ensured that he will never be alone again, just as Maria would have wanted. Do you think your dog would miss you so much if you were gone? Please share your ideas and opinions in the comments box down below. Thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe to the channel to come join us again for more inspirational stories.